Hey guys, so finally I came up with a new video. I have just done a bit of analysis. Forget about the name of the spreadsheet, but really I want to look at one salary versus two salaries. Bear with me here. So, for example, you could be earning 50 grand a year, or you and your partner can be earning 25 grand each. Will that be the same? Are you better off just working yourself and the partner can be looking after, I don't know, the house or whatever it might be, or you're better off both working? So if your total salary is the same, how much of a difference does it really make if one person works with a high salary versus two people working with a medium salary? Let's have a look at the numbers. So here we have one salary. Let's just go through it. If your income is 50 grand a year on a one salary, you're making about 2,900 per month. If your income is 100,000 a year, you're making about 4,800 a month. 150 grand a year is 6,100 a month, and 200,000 a year is 7,000 per month. So just take a moment to reflect on that. That's already a bit shocking for myself because to me, 200,000 a year, it sounds a bit silly, but I'm thinking it should be like 20 grand a month or close to that. Well, not really. You get hit with a lot of tax. This is also assuming Scotland, so for anyone watching in England, the numbers will be slightly better for you because your thresholds are a bit higher, but there's a lot of tax. There's also, whenever you get a salary, there's usually a pension deduction. Obviously, the higher salary, the higher the pension deduction. Same percentage, but the amount can vary. There is also student loan that I've assumed that you're still paying off. So there's the tax, national insurance, pension contribution, student loan. And after that, that's roughly where you're going to be with the numbers. What that means is that 50 grand salary, you're getting 2,900, paying tax of 1,200, so you're getting way more than what you pay in tax and the other deductions. However, at 200 grand a year, you're getting less than what deductions are. So those deductions, as I said, are tax, pension, student loan, and things like that. So as you keep growing in your salary, you keep getting hit with more and more and more. So you have to be really careful here. So now let's compare that to the two salaries. So let's look at 50 grand. Imagine instead of the 50 grand job, you both have a 25 grand job. So a much more entry level job for each one of you. Together, you'll actually make £3,440 a month, which means that together you'll be making £500 more per month. So that's a big, big difference. And if you wanted to match that, you can't just have a 50 grand salary. You actually need to have a 63 grand salary if you want to get the same income as two people on 25k. So the tax system is really designed to have people on lower to mid salaries, and as you keep growing, you keep getting punished more and more. Not great in my opinion, but that's the way the country works, and I don't fully understand all the economical principles, so I'm just analysing the system that's there at the moment. So £500 a month extra if you work together. If you're on £100,000, instead you decide to both take a job at £50,000 each, you end up being £1,000, £1,000 better off per month. So quite a lot. Just think about that. So instead of one person doing £100,000 job, there's two people doing £50,000 each, and they're richer by £1,000 a month. That's 12 grand a year. 12 grand a year. What's a nice holiday to Mexico will be between 2 to 4 grand. So you can technically, yes, you'll be constrained with the holidays and stuff you have, but you can potentially go to Mexico 3-4 times a year nicely. And I'm saying Mexico because we love Mexico, but it can be Turkey, it can be anywhere else that you like. You can literally be on holidays all the time just from this extra money that you get from this working together thing. Not even counting the fact that you're going to have still the same salary on top of that to pay for all your bills and save and all that stuff. So really big difference there. 150k is kind of the sweet spot, I would say. You're both, if you split that and you both make 75, you are getting 7774 instead of 6116. So by doing this, you are going to be richer by £1,658. How crazy? How crazy is that? Let's just put that into perspective. Equals 1658 times by 12. Almost 20 grand a year. Almost £20,000 a year. That is insane. Absolutely insane. No words. 20 grand a year, you could be putting a deposit for a property every year and buying a new buy to let, buy a new cheap buy to let every year just from this extra savings. So again, the system is crazy, absolutely crazy, guys. I'm just almost exposing it here because you think, for example, right, at £50,000, that's a decent salary, your sort of management type job. You're both making it. You're not quite at the point where you've done extremely well in your career, but you're both doing okay. And things are fine. There's still plenty more growth up if you really wanted to. But you're doing all right. At £100,000, one person's got an incredible job. They've got an incredible job, and they think to themselves, "Wow, I'm a senior manager here. I've got a big team. I can provide for my family." But the reality is, if that is the case, they're going to be hit with more taxes. So two mediocre jobs end up being much, much better than one higher, sort of more fancy job. It's crazy, but that's the way it works in the UK. So as I said, at 75k each is around your safe spot where you'll be making the best, taking the most advantage pretty much of the taxes. I would say maybe between 50 and 75k. Again, so let's go back at 50k. You need a salary of £63,000. If instead of two of you working, if you want to work yourself and get the same money, you need 63k. At 100k, if not both of you are working and just one of you is working, you need 142,000. 142,000. That's like a senior director type level. A lot of money. Instead, you can just be having a 50 grand a year job each. You'll be way better off. 75k a year, you'll need to have pretty much £200,000 per year salary instead of 150. And at 200,000 per year split, to get the same amount of monthly income, you need £252,500. I mean, that's just impossible. I don't even know where you need to be. You need to be right at the top of a really big company. So really tough. So yeah, 200k. If you do it yourself, 7825. If you do it split with your partner, it's 9620. So 1795 difference. So very, very major. As you can see, in 200k, take-home pay is lower than your deductions. Whereas if you do it between the two people, you will take home more than what your deductions are. So the summary is the UK tax system is a bit crazy. It's extremely important for you to study it, study your bracket, study where you want to be, because if you just aimlessly aiming up, sorry about that. So if you're just, I think it sounds a bit weird saying it like that, but if you're just trying to progress, you will be getting hit with tax so hard. Each progression level is not easy. As you grow up, you have more responsibility, you have a bigger team, you eventually go into managing managers, so you are in a very high position. You will eventually get to the point where you can potentially have legal consequences. So your signature on documents of the company will have legal consequences. So there's risk there, and you're taking that for the company. But you'll be getting hit with so much tax, they might not even be worth it. So definitely look at your personal progression and where you're going, but be very, very realistic and selective with this chart here. Just have a think about it, and if you are together, really plan how you want to progress things, because this just shows you that sometimes it's not worth it aiming for the skies in a job, because you'll just get hit by tax like crazy. This is very simplistic example, because the reality is it's very unlikely you and your partner are going to be exactly on the same level, earning exactly the same money. It happens, but it's not that common. but this is just a demonstration. So just down here is another sort of example just to show you what can be done and what can be looked at a bit more, which I might do in the next video. And that's to open up a limited company. I think really, if you want to accumulate wealth, this is the way to do it. It's not through a job. Through a job, it just doesn't work. I mean, I've been working my whole life since I was in uni, since before uni, since I finished school, I've been working non-stop up until now. So now I'm 31 and I've started working at about 16, 17. So for the past 15 years, I've been working non-stop through uni, then full-time. And I'm realizing now that as I'm growing, I'm realizing that the tax is extremely important. You can't just assume that because you're going to grow higher, take on more responsibility, have a bigger team, etc., that things financially just fall into place. If you don't plan properly, you will get hit. Every single promotions, every single pay rise, you will get hit a lot. Yes, your salary will keep growing, but the higher you go, the slower it's going to grow. So you have to be careful there. So with the limited company, if you do consulting or whatever it might be in a limited company, you make a profit from that, then you've got quite a lot of ways. So for example, if you and your wife do it, you can be taking your salaries out. So from that profit, you can both take a salary. On the salary, there's employer national insurance. So you just need to think and calculate what salary really works for yourselves. Remember, you can also include your kids, your family members. If they're helping with the business and are genuinely contributing, you can be paying them a salary. So you can be looking at everyone's situation of income and you can really plan for salaries that way. So that's a really good strategy there. You can be paying corporation tax on your profit, and then you can take out a dividend. So from the net profit, you can take out a dividend as a shareholder. If you have it with your wife, you can both take out a dividend and really plan it that way. If you're both directors, if you have more directors, you can be paying into the director's pension. So that's a tax deductible expense. So what that means is that whatever profit you make, you can need to look at all the allowances and stuff, but you can take a chunk of it and throw it into your pension. There's also things like SIPs and stuff where you can buy commercial property in this pension pot. So there's all those interesting tax saving techniques with that. I don't know too much about them, but I know that this can be looked at and can be done, and it cannot be done in a job. In a job, you have your pension contribution and that's it. You can be contributing more if you wanted, but your tax is going to be big, and also you need to survive, you need to live, so you don't want to just put your whole salary into the pension and end up with nothing. So a lot more flexibility with the company. Another thing you can do is you can create a group structure within the company and you can have a special purpose vehicle that invests into property. So as you accumulate money in your company, you can loan that money or transfer that money within the group and use that money to start developing a property portfolio, which is something I'm interested in myself personally. So with a company, there's a lot more flexibility, there's a lot more things you can do, and you don't get hit as much because you can also lower your lifestyle and just take less money out for yourselves, but keep more money in the company, and you could really do things there. You can have a company car, for example, that you can take out depending on the tax incentives at the moment, as you can do property. You can really build something within that in a tax efficient way. So there's my summary. There's my summary of 50 to 200 grand salary, one person working versus two people working, how the take-home pay changes. More than happy to share the spreadsheet. I hope you've enjoyed the video and looking forward to seeing you in the next one. Hey guys, just one final point. I've finished the video, but actually I've been thinking about it more and more. And another thing that I've maybe not, I want to make all my videos as balanced as possible. So one thing I haven't quite shown you guys is the fact that when one person works, they pay more tax, they have more deductions, as you can see in here. So when two people work on lower salaries, you are essentially richer as a family. However, one thing you really should consider, and that's why this spreadsheet is going to be very helpful to you, is what other expenses are there. So for example, you need to look at childcare. If one person works, the other one can be taking care of the child. The nurseries, so if you have several children, can cost thousands a month. So for example, if one person works and gets 100 grand a year, if they work together at a smaller salary, they would get £1,000 more. However, by the second person not working, they might be saving 2 grand in childcare fees, which makes it super worth it for them not to work and for the one person to actually work. So that's something to consider. Another thing is just think about business. For example, we've realized from that video that developing your business, a company, is something that is good, is something that can really make you free in the future. So if one person is working, paying more tax, and the second person is actually developing and making the business happen, in the future that can allow the first person to stop working and join the business and have a much more tax efficient future and a better, more free future. So again, they're taking a hit on the tax. However, the business is getting developed, and that's something that is really, really good for the family. And there's other things that are very similar. Do you have potentially family commitments? Do you have sick family members that need care? In which case you can take that tax hit. So I wanted to show you in this video that two smaller salaries end up being a lot more tax efficient than one bigger salary. However, you really need to look at your circumstances, because if the second person not working and actually doing something that brings the family up, that can be a huge saving as well. So have a look at the spreadsheet, make your own sort of judgments and your own conclusions from that. But I'm just giving you the facts and the numbers of how things work. Again, thanks a lot for watching, and looking forward to seeing you in the next one.